In Afghanistan, President Hamid Karzai has held an emergency meeting with the NATO commander and the US Ambassador to discuss the negative effects of Afghan civilian deaths. In the meeting, Karzai said Kabul's strategic pact with Washington will be at risk if the US-led forces continue to kill Afghan civilians. Karzai said he signed the pact to protect the Afghan people. He added that if civilian deaths are not stopped, the pact will lose its validity. Fresh US-led airstrikes have killed nearly a dozen civilians in Badghis and Helmand province. This several days after Karzai signed an agreement with US President Barack Obama, allowing US troops to stay in the country beyond 2014. The deal has angered Afghan lawmakers who argue that it has not been approved by Parliament. Joining us on the line from Washington now is a legal affairs editor of the Executive Intelligence Review, Edward Spannaus. Many thanks for joining us here on PressTV, Mr. Spannaus. Now, what do you make of the timing of Karzai's comments? Don't they come a decade of U.S. atrocities and civilian massacres too late?
Well, yes, and we're now looking at another decade of U.S. presence in Afghanistan under the agreement that President Obama announced last week. Even though he talked about withdrawing U.S. troops, there will be a significant troop presence there at a cost of about $4 billion a year for 10 more years. So we're looking at $40 billion. Special operations forces under the guise of training and advising will be there. And also you have an agreement on the nighttime raids. So there's no withdrawal taking place. We're looking at another 10 years when in fact we should have gotten out of there long ago. We should have never actually been in there.
Right now, could raising concerns such as civilian casualties help ally the opposition to the signing of the strategic pact by both members of the Afghan parliament and the general population?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question.
Would raising concerns by Karzai of civilian casualties help quell the opposition that has been created against a strategic pact by the parliament as well as the opposition?
I doubt it. I doubt it very much because the mere fact of the continued U.S. presence there is destabilizing. It's destabilizing for Afghanistan, and it's destabilizing for the U.S. military as well. And I don't think anything that can be done under these conditions, when you're dealing with a counterinsurgency, when you don't really know who is the enemy, who isn't the enemy, everybody looks like the enemy. The very fact of the U.S. presence there increases the opposition, increases the insurgency. In fact, the two heads of the intelligence committees in the U.S. Congress, Senator Feinstein and Congressman Mike Rogers, said over the weekend that Taliban is stronger now than it was when the U.S. troops began the surge. So it has a counterproductive effect that the more you do, the more you engender a reaction against you in these kind of situations. And I think it's not going to have, doesn't have wide acceptance in the U.S. Congress, and it certainly will not have acceptance in the Afghanistan parliament.
Now, Karzai has threatened that the strategic pact will be at risk if U.S.-led forces continue to kill civilians. Is Karzai even in the position to take such measures now that the pact has already been signed?
Well, Karzai's in a very weak position. His staying in power really is dependent on the U.S. He does not have all that much support within the Afghanistan population, which is, of course, is very fractured. It's tribal, very factionalized. He depends on the U.S., so the demands that he makes, he's in a very weak position to make those demands, because without the U.S., I don't think he would last in power very long.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. I'm afraid we have run out of time. That was Edward Spannaus, legal affairs editor with the Executive Intelligence Review, joining us there from studios in Washington. Mr. Spannaus, thank you for your comments here on PressTV.